And my goodness, it has been so long. I don't even know if it's going to work. So we're just going to wait and see, make sure that the stream is connecting. It looks like I'm seeing a little bit of activity over on YouTube. I see myself. It's working. Let me know if you can hear me down in the chat, because it is a brand new setup for me. We have not been live in like 2 months. I was looking back at the last live stream we did. It was in March. But I think I see some activity out there. We've got, yes, confirmed good audio from Just Causes in the house over on YouTube. And we have Ed's here, Raisin Canes, Jeremiah Taylor, Ion Energy. Oh, it feels so good to be here. Oh, and look what I figured out. I think, let's see if this works. So we got some chat that can come up on the screen. I'm still learning some new gizmos. We were chatting away over on Locals just before the show started, and I was trying to communicate with 3 girlies over there, talking about some potential dental procedures that might take place. And I was sort of half typing sentences, and so she had no idea what I was talking about. Black Cat Meows over there, Bonnie, Grouchy Old Cat Ladies in the house. And it feels like old times, how I missed all of you. It's so good to be back. Now, I've been just working my little tail off at the law firm. We've got a lot of cool stuff that we're working on, and we're finally coming out of a wave a little bit of a lot of activity where we're reconfiguring a bunch of our systems, and we're doing a bunch of cool stuff. And so I'll share some of that with you as it continues to unfold, but we are sort of back. I'm settling down in a little bit. You can see I'm in a new studio. I've got a new place in downtown Phoenix, and so everything's kind of falling into place, which means I think we're going to be able to start spending a little bit more time together on these live streams, which I'm very excited about because we have a lot of fun here. And without any further ado, we've got some headlines to attend to, of course. We're giving some final shout outs. C. Reed's in the house. Black Cat Meow is here. Ew, it's like all the old crews back together again. How fun. All right. And so, but that being said, we've got some serious business to attend to. Why? Well, we've got a lot of activity out there around the world these days. Michael Sussman trial starting very soon. And we have been paying attention to this for several months now, but this is all kind of coming together. We've got the full trial starting very soon. I want to show you some slides. Let's make sure this is working. There it is. And here we can see we've got the headline, or we've got the actual dates coming up. They're all organized here for us. Let me make sure my pen is up. We've got jury selection starting on the 16th. So that's going to be here soon. We've got jury questionnaires. Those are going out on Wednesday, I believe. But then we have our final pretrial conference taking place on May 9th. And they're also going to be doing a confidentiality hearing taking place on Tuesday. I believe it's going to be the 10th. So this placeholder hearing is going to be filled up. We are going to have a confidentiality hearing on that day. So that's going to be Monday activity, Tuesday activity. Then I think we're going to get Wednesday. We're going to get jury questionnaire on that day. And then jury selection starts hot on Monday. And then we should go right into the trial. So not this Monday, but the following Monday, trial will start, which is why we've been so interested in what's going on. And I want to just spend a little quick minute on this. Actually, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this. We'll get the heavy lifting out of the way first. Then we're going to dive into Rand Paul absolutely getting into it with Mayorkas. This was yesterday during a Senate Judiciary hearing, and it was a good one. Rand Paul is telling it like it is to Mr. Mayorkas, talking a lot about the misinformation, disinformation board. And Mayorkas is out there trying to tell us that this is all on for the benefit of the migrants who are coming across the southern border, because those drug cartels are out there spreading all sorts of dangerous disinformation and misinformation, and we don't want that to happen. So this domestic Department of Homeland Security Disinformation Governance Board is going to be protecting our civil liberties. And Rand Paul calls him out on that, rightfully so. And we'll go through that in detail because it is good. And then lastly, because it's Friday, Jen Psaki is leaving the White House, and we got to make sure we give her a proper goodbye. She is going somewhere else. We don't know where, probably MSNBC. So we'll see if that's where she lands. But there were a couple nice little conversations that she had on her way out. She was over at the press briefing room and got into it with Ducey. There was a nice little moment there. And Jen Psaki had an exit question, an exit point she wanted to make for all of us. And so we'll get into that at the outset of the program. But we got to get through the heavy lifting first. And so we'll get into Sussman as we can see here, we've got the calendar ahead of us. And today, Friday, it is the 6th. And we saw some activity near the end of the day. A minute order came out talking about that confidentiality hearing that's going to take place tomorrow. So on Tuesday, next week on Tuesday. So May 10th, we saw that. But this is all kind of standard operating procedure. They put a confidentiality hearing in. They already had a placeholder for it, so not a big deal. But two things came out yesterday that I think are a little bit fun that we can go through. Remember, on the prior date, in the prior slide, we had this due on May 5th, which was yesterday, objections to the case in chief, the exhibits. So what this means is that both sides are going to be presenting evidence as this case goes to trial. Durham's got a bunch of exhibits he wants to communicate to the jurors. Sussman, same thing. And so they've got to disclose that to both sides. So everybody's sort of apprised of what might come out. And they have an opportunity to object to those. And so we're going to take a look at those documents. You can see them here. Both of those came in right on the deadlines on May 5th, 2022. We have two of these. One, notice of Sussman's preliminary objections to the special counsel exhibit list. So he's objecting to just the preliminary exhibits that are being proffered forward by Durham. We also have Durham objecting to some of Sussman's exhibits. And so both sides are out there saying, we don't want your stuff in front of the jury, in front of their eyeballs. Well, let's go through a couple of the different breakdowns on what's happening here. Here is Sussman's first. Now, Sussman, his list is kind of what you would expect from a defense attorney. Here he says, this is our preliminary objections to special counsel in their exhibit list. Why preliminary? Well, he's going to reserve a bunch of stuff for the trial. He doesn't want all of this out there, all of his objections to be known. He's going to hold his cards close to his chest to make sure that nobody sees what his objections may or may not be. And so this one is not really that interesting. We'll fly through it quickly. You can even see it's only 2 pages, not even much there. It's all being reserved. That's why. It says the defense has reviewed John Durham's proposed exhibits and in good faith, and we've raised objections to the best extent we can, to the extent possible. However, without the benefit of context and without knowing the purpose for why Durham wants to use these things, we don't know why he wants to use them, Mr. Sussman cannot possibly identify all the objections he may have. Seems pretty reasonable. You don't know what they're going to use those things for, and so maybe you can't object to it. If you knew what they were going to use it for, well, you'd certainly object. So he's sort of reserving all of these, his defense team, reserving all of these potential objections for later. They give an example to the judge. They say, for example, in many cases, it's impossible from the face of the document to determine whether the special counsel Durham intends to offer it for the truth of the statements in the document, which might be hearsay, or whether the document may be admissible for a non-hearsay purpose. So therefore, Sussman is reserving his right to object. So not much more interesting. He says, similarly, without knowing what Durham plans to use or seek to admit, he also cannot anticipate at this time any deficiencies. We can't lay a foundation. And so basically this whole thing is saying, we're going to reserve it for a later date. Here he says, Mr. Sussman therefore reserves the right to object as to all of the exhibits. So we don't really get anything too interesting or substantive out of that. It's just, we're going to reserve a bunch of this stuff until later on in the trial. But we do see some interesting tidbits coming out from Durham and from the prosecutors. Now, they are objecting to Sussman submitting this stuff as exhibits into court. And we can see what the defense's strategy might be. Let's see if we can piece it together, because there is a lot here. You can see exactly what they're doing. So now this is Durham objecting to Sussman, saying you can't get your stuff into court in front of the jurors. And you'll see exactly what I mean here in a minute. So this one's a little bit more substantive. Unlike Sussman's, which was only 2 pages, this one is 8 pages. And this is the government's objections to Sussman's exhibits. So now Sussman wants to introduce a bunch of stuff to make himself look amazing and to make what he did with the FBI look entirely reasonable, to see it's just an old patriot who just wanted to go and help America's intelligence services stop Donald Trump from wrecking America. That's all it is. Here, they're going to try to introduce a bunch of stuff to sort of make Sussman look like a shiny, beautiful new car or something. Here, though, Durham is going to be objecting, and let's see what specifically exhibits he's going to object to, because we know there's a lot of them. There's 8 pages of it. The United States of America, through its attorney John Counsel, hereby objects to the following exhibits. We're saying that many of these should be ruled on in motions in limine, but here we've got initial objections to 3 categories of exhibits the defense tends to use. or wants to sort of proffer forward to the juries. So we talk a lot about the different buckets and how we categorize different arguments. What John Durham and his prosecutors are doing is they're saying they're trying to get sort of certain types of evidence in front of the jurors. And here's why each one of those buckets is so problematic. They tell us under subsection 1, here it says the first bucket is emails relating to Sussman's work on cyber issues for the DNC and Hillary for America. So we've got to really break this apart a little bit. Remember, we are in trial right now. This case has gotten so conflated because there are so many moving parties here. And I don't think that I pulled up, one second, I forgot to pull up the mind map before we jumped into this. And I knew that I was getting ahead of myself. I knew things were going to be a little bit rusty here on the first live stream back in a while. But we did have the Sussman trial and the mind map. And so I've got that being pulled up right now. Let's take a look at this. Remember all the different parties that are in here. And Sussman, for a long time, worked for Perkins Coie, which is the law firm at issue, the same law firm that hired Mark Elias, who is really the general counsel. Both these people working for Perkins Coie, which was hired by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. So we're going to see a lot of activity, a lot of commentary about Michael Sussman working for Hillary and working with the FBI. But remember, that's not part of this particular case. This trial is literally only Michael Sussman versus the United States of America. United States says he lied to the FBI on one particular incident, and that was a crime. That's it. Now, because he was working for Perkins Coie and essentially Hillary Clinton and the DNC, all of these people were trying to come basically crash their car into this criminal proceeding to stop the judge from getting access to certain things because these people are freaking out. I mean, Fusion GPS, they filed a motion to intervene, or there's sort of a motion for the limited purpose of intervening to contest the judge looking at their emails, essentially is what it came down to. And they're all sort of involved in this. So there are multiple issues layered on top of each other. Now, when we go back to the actual slides, which I have here, we're going to see that they're talking about different conversations taking place that are outside of the scope of this criminality. So remember, let's sort of put a hula hoop around this. Sussman charged with a crime. Why? One incident or several incidents of lying to the FBI with the Steele dossier and the white papers. But he also had legitimate conversations with the FBI. He was also doing legitimate work for Hillary and the DNC because he was a lawyer engaged in other proper lawyer things. But that's what the defense is trying to sort of insert into this. Why might they want to do that? Here, let's see, one bucket that Durham is identifying is saying, we don't want this stuff coming in, is Sussman's exhibit list. He says it includes 300 email chains between the defendant and various FBI personnel reflecting the defendant's work relating to what? The hack of the DNC. Remember now, the hack of the DNC, right? WikiLeaks, Hillary's emails, they got hacked. A bunch of stuff from John Podesta and all of the rest of the Democrats got leaked out to everybody out there in America and around the world. And Sussman, if he's an actual legitimate lawyer, which there's no reason to presume he isn't, is actually working on this case. Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of emails back and forth between Sussman and the DNC, between Sussman and the FBI, between Sussman and Hillary for America. So Sussman was in fact working with the DNC and the FBI, also working on cybersecurity issues for Hillary for America. He's a lawyer. He's working on these things. Let me analyze this breach and see what our liability is. Since this document got hacked, let me go sort of investigate this and see if we have to do anything to rectify this issue so we don't get hit with any, breach of something claims. All legitimate stuff. So Durham is identifying those. He says, as an additional matter, the government is not contesting that the defendant worked for both of those entities on cybersecurity and other issues. Durham's saying, yeah, we know he worked with them. We know that there's all sorts of emails going back and forth. But the government also acknowledges that certain emails reflecting the defendant's work on behalf of Hillary for America on cybersecurity matters are potentially relevant and admissible insofar as the defendant might use those emails to argue that some or all of the billing that went to Hillary for America were in fact related to other work on Hillary for America. All right, so this is a heavy part of issues layering on top of one another, but let's back up just a little bit so we can see what's happening here. So I'm a defense attorney. My perspective on this is what the defense is trying to proffer is that Sussman was regularly meeting with the FBI. And you can see that right here from this from this exhibit list. Sussman is trying to keep out the defense's attempts to bring in 300 email chains of what? Anything related to this particular incident? No, these aren't email chains about Sussman meeting with Jim Baker and with Trish Anderson and with Bill Prystep, or they got the notes after the fact. It's not about that. These 300 email chains are about issues completely unrelated to what took place at that meeting. It's about the DNC hack, which is not related to why they were there. They're proffering forward Trump-Russia collusion. The defense is also trying to layer in a bunch of cybersecurity issues related to Hillary for America. And they want to show that Sussman was sending emails back and forth with the FBI regularly. This is what his business was. And so why would they do that? Because it makes another meeting with the FBI seem perfectly ordinary, seem like it's not a big deal at all. He just is regularly talking with these people. So if he made a mistake in saying that he didn't communicate that he was here on behalf of Hillary Clinton, that's not an intentional oversight. It's just a sort of a minor error. People make mistakes in the ordinary course of business all the time. And they're also trying to show that the FBI knew or should have known that he had in fact worked for Hillary. So do you see what they're trying to do? They're trying to remove all the liability off of Michael Sussman. They're going to say that in the ordinary course of business, he engaged in a regular pattern of conduct of communication with the FBI personnel. We've got 300 email chains, and it shows that he was doing legitimate work. And so they're trying to take the liability off of him and give it back over to the FBI. They knew or they should have known. And the defense is trying to just layer on 300 email chains to say this is just regular business, nothing nefarious here, nothing criminal here. So the Durham team is acknowledging that, yes, there was some legitimate stuff going on, but they are saying that the government respectfully submits, however, that the court, even though there was legitimate stuff happening that they're trying to layer on in 300 emails, saying the court should carefully analyze each email that the defendant offers at trial to ensure that it is not admitted for its truth, but instead for some other permissible purpose, like to prove defendant's state of mind or the email's effect on one or more of its recipients. You just can't layer on a phone book of emails that make your client look great. In addition, the defendant, Sussman, should not be permitted to offer dozens of emails to establish basic facts like because such voluminous evidence would be cumulative and unduly prejudicial. So what they're saying is, if you've got 30 emails that make the same point, you only get one of those. You don't get the opportunity to throw out 300 emails all saying the same thing, because that's duplicative, that's overly cumulative, and it becomes prejudicial towards the government, which of course is a good point. So this carries on. We see that Durham is making some other pretty good points here, says that dozens of communications about defendants' work regarding the DNC hack are largely irrelevant. We're not talking about that. We're here talking about Trump-Russia collusion. The defendant billed his work on that matter to the DNC, not Hillary for America. The indictment alleges specifically the defendant billed time on Russia Bank to Hillary. And we've talked about this many times. Sussman literally, after his meeting with the FBI, according to these documents, went back and sent Hillary a bill for the meeting when he met with the FBI. This is what Durham's talking about. These emails, therefore, do not support any inferences or arguments relating to the defendant's alleged build time. Instead, they contain extensive details on collateral issues, talking about why some of that stuff should be precluded. We have a couple more slides on this, and then we'll jump into the next topic. But here it says, the extent the defendant is offering, to the extent they're offering such emails in support of arguments that the defendant was a cybersecurity lawyer. Okay, we know that, no problem. Cybersecurity lawyer, great. The defendant was known and respected at the FBI. Okay. And the defendant was concerned about and involved in responding to cyber attacks. Durham says that's fine. That's all really great. It's good to know. Nobody cares. Oh, I'm not on the right thing. It says here, you saw me going through all of that. The defendant's potential arguments in this regard support at best the admission of a limited quantity of these emails. Admitting all of them would be highly cumulative and would be prejudicial. So the government is respectfully saying only admit a limited number of those. Now, this is where we get into this portion of the motion. The defense is also trying to get all of this introduced. So let's take a look at this. Remember that Sussman went and sat down with the FBI on September 9th, I believe it was, in the months leading up to the election. So this is all in 2016, Hillary versus Trump. The world's melting down. Trump's rising. Hillary's falling. It's all coming cascading down upon Hillary for America. So they start concocting this Trump-Russia collusion hoax. They need an October surprise. They drop it at the end of October. And this is what the defense is now submitting as exhibits. That meeting took place in September. Here is what the defense is using. They want to show all this to the jurors. Why might this be? This article is over from the Wall Street Journal. It's from D. Paletta. It says election 2016. Trump goes his own way with Putin. It was published May 14, 2016. Here's another one published June 14th. We have another one July 7th. Time article. Meet the tyrant Donald Trump loves the most. It's Putin. Right? Same garbage that we're hearing these days, just regurgitated nonsense. Here, the Washington Post, Russian government hacks penetrated DNC, stole opposition research on Trump. These are all, it's like somebody's bookmarked folder with all their articles and magazines in there. Washington Post, New York Magazine, another Washington Post article from June, July, several from July. Los Angeles Times, Russia's finger on the campaign scale, DNC email hacks. And they have a whole nother page of this. This is Sussman's defense team trying to load up the narrative with the idea that everybody in the whole world knew at the time that Trump and Russia were under investigation. There was something very serious happening here. You see this? The defense is trying to get all of this in front of the jurors to say Michael Sussman was just a reasonable citizen. He knew, everybody knew, that Trump and Russia were in this scheme where they were doing whatever they were doing, trying to seize the reins of America. And so the defense is trying to layer this on so that the jurors will have context about Michael Sussman's perspective. They'll say, oh, Michael Sussman, we can believe the fact that he just was a nice guy who went into the FBI. He's a good Samaritan citizen there on his own accord trying to help them. Why? Because the whole stinking world was saying that Donald Trump was this menace. CNN, money, Donald Trump's ties to Russia. October 2nd, Trump's many ties to Russia, right? Jay Nesbitt, Time article. The whole media was literally colluding to try to put this narrative forward. And the defense is trying to make Sussman look like a very nice, reasonable guy by getting it all admitted. Durham and his team say this is ridiculous. As an initial matter, the defense has proffered no evidentiary or factual basis to offer these various news articles. Why would we have these news articles? It says many of these predate the defendant's meeting with the FBI in the first place. As we talked about, the meeting was in September. This meeting, all of these articles from way before that. Well, we know that's because they're trying to establish the narrative. Sussman was busy reading The Guardian, reading CNN, reading New York Times, reading ABC, reading apparently the Christian Science Monitor, and so on. And so he saw all of these horror stories and he had to act, which is why he took this white paper and dragged it down to the FBI and then the CIA. But Durham is saying, why would you need to submit those articles? You don't need to get any of those articles in. That's nonsense. Says the majority of the above articles appear to relate to the DNC hack, which is not what we're talking about here. They're talking about Trump-Russia collusion, Trump emails back and forth with Alpha Bank, Yoda phones, and all that stuff. Those articles are about the DNC hack, not even related to this. Or he writes, Donald Trump's purported illicit ties to Russia. And here we're talking about a lie to the FBI. News articles regarding such matters are not themselves probative of the charged conduct in any way. The government will not dispute the DNC was a victim of the hack. Yeah, sure. If the defense wants to make that argument to the jurors, they're free to do that. But we don't need a bunch of articles, 35 articles about it. Nor is the government going to dispute the defendant carried out significant legal work in relation to the hack. He was working all over the place on it. The government, similarly, will not seek to prove one way or another whether Donald Trump maintained ties to Russia in any way, shape, or form, other than to establish the facts relating to the FBI's investigation of Russia. So you can see the defense is trying to really expand the scope of the argument. We talk about the hula hoop, we kind of put around things. The defense is trying to say, listen, Michael Sussman's a really good guy. He needs to show the jurors really what was going on in his head. And we've got a lot of newspaper articles about this. And he was very concerned. That's why he did what he did. And also, for more context, he didn't just ring up Jim Baker from the FBI or like call a local branch and say, hey, I'm just a citizen who happens to live around the corner and I'm concerned about Trump. He had a lot of ties with them. He was meeting with them on the DNC hack, and he was sort of engaging with them back and forth for a long time. So what's another meeting? It's not out of the ordinary at all. It's just regular business. You guys are making a big deal of nothing. And so what that they didn't get to that little minor detail about whether he was actually working for Hillary? It's inconsequential, and it wouldn't have changed the course of their investigation anyways, is what the defense is going to argue. So Durham wraps up, and he tells us here, permitting the defense, permitting Sussman to admit the above listed series of news articles would amount to the ultimate mini trial of the very sort that's going to confuse the jurors, and it doesn't provide any useful evidence. Accordingly, this court should exclude the above referenced news articles, and that is signed by John Durham, written here by Jonathan Algor, Andrew DeFilippis, Michael Keelty, and Britton Shaw, over at the Justice Department, Special Counsel's Office, prosecuting Michael Sussman. And so this is going to continue to really escalate in terms of intensity over these next few days. We know that this was the end of the week. Here, I did submit a request for transcripts sort of on a rolling basis. I contacted the court reporter over there to see, I did contact the court reporter to see what sort of a speed or frequency they can turn around the transcripts on when the trial starts on May 19th. And so May 16th is when the trial starts. So I'm looking to see how quickly I can get those transcripts and if I can even get a real-time feed. I'm not sure if they'll give me anything like that, but it would be very neat. And of course, I saw some super chats come in, and those super chats are going to help fund that if I can get the transcripts immediately. So I appreciate that. They depending on how quickly you get the transcripts, they're expensive. If you get them basically overnight or within the hour, it's like $7 a page, all right, for the transcript. And we're talking about a multi-day trial with hundreds or thousands of pages of documents. So I'm going to see if it's cost effective to get it quickly, but we'll see. Regardless, we're going to cover it in depth. If I can get a real-time feed, then that would be pretty amazing, and we'll see what we can do with that. But I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case, but I'm continuing to investigate it, and I appreciate your support. So before we jump into the next segment, let's make sure that we chime in and see what's going on with some of these super chats that came in. We have Huckleberry Harrison. The next topic we're getting into is Mayorkas versus Rand Paul. I've got the full clip. It's about 6 minutes, and it's quite good. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. But we've got a couple super chats I want to acknowledge here before we jump into the other one. Huckleberry Harrison is here. Says Durham looks like BTK. Durham is a very difficult man to get photographs of. Cannot see him anywhere. I got like 3 photographs of the guy, and I've looked all over the place, but that's one photo of, I think, 3 that exist in the history of the world. C. Reed is back, says, hey, Rob, can we get an update on when you plan the next scheduled live? Looking forward to it. Well, C. Reed, that's part of the problem is I don't really have a good schedule drilled in, anchored in at the moment. I have a lot that I'm trying to clear up right before the Sussman trial. I want to make sure I dedicate a lot of time to Sussman because I think this is a very important trial that for some reason is not getting that much coverage. Well, I know why it's not getting that much coverage. It's because it involves the entire Democratic Party. Everybody's involved. Look at that stinking mind map that we did. Here, let's pull this puppy back up. This is going to be fun. And so I want to make sure we dedicate some time to that. So I'll be going live a lot more frequently, very, very soon, but I don't know what the schedule is going to be, because of the fact I don't know what kind of data I can get to report on this trial. But look at this. We've got Hillary's here. We've got Mark Elias, Michael Sussman. We got the Fusion GPS people, Peter Fritsch, co-founder, Glenn Simpson, co-founder. John Durham is going to try to pull Laura Seago as a witness for the government. Going to try to basically convert somebody over there. Rodney Jaffe, Christopher Steele's on the list. We've got Igor Danchenko. They were hacking into Trump's White House, Trump's New York offices, Trump Central Park, everywhere. It was insane. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover. And so I know that there are a couple people who will probably be there, and they'll probably be live tweeting it. But my schedule will be a little bit dynamic until I know. I'll either, if I can get like a real-time feed, we'll either get up early and do the trials all day in the morning. If it's not a real-time feed, I'll have to wait till the transcripts are completed after the fact, and then we'll just do the summations after the fact, sort of like we did with Ghislaine Maxwell. And I really think we did the same thing with Derek Chauvin. So we'll cover it intensely, but I'm not sure how it's going to be yet. Otherwise, there'll be some sporadic live streams, maybe headlines in the morning or headlines in the evenings. I still don't know. I'm still sort of figuring all that out. But thanks for asking about it, C. Reed. Another one from Curtis Bartle says, live is best. Campfire. Fire. Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Curtis Bartle. Thanks for chiming in. It's good to see you again. Rhoda's here with a super chat. No question. Frank Burke with another nice sticker. No question from Frank, but thank you, everybody, for those super chats. Ronnie Cole says, everybody was Kung Flu fighting. The lies were as fast as lightning. That's true. It is true. They're all over the place in the Sussman case. And James Doc Stater with the big super chat, no question, but thank you, James, with the nice sticker, says you are amazing, and I appreciate that. And let's do a quick check-in over on locals and see what's going on over there. JC the Music Man's there talking about gas prices. Yeah, Bonnie Speck too. JC the Music Man says, I thought it was 10 cents a page. Well, yeah, so it is if you want to, well, no, that's not true. It's 10 cents a page on Pacer. If you want the transcript and you want it quickly, like overnight or same day, like within the hour, it's $7 a page on the form that I just submitted. So it's quite a lot, but we'll figure it out one way or the other. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So those are the great comments from all of our friends everywhere on YouTube. Let's jump into the next segment, shall we? And where are we going next? Oh, that's right. Rand Paul. We have a new disinformation governance board. Aren't you excited about that? They're going to be working to protect our freedoms and protect our liberty and make sure that we're nice and safe. Rand Paul wasn't having it, and this has been one of the more ridiculous stories as of late. Here you can see this one. He posted this on May 4th, so this a couple days ago. And I got the full clip. It's about 8.5 minutes. Rand Paul starts getting into some of the COVID stuff near the end of it. So we had to cut it off a little early, which is a bummer. I really wish he wouldn't have done that, because he actually says something like, YouTube's going to throw me off if I say this. And then he says it. I'm like, I can't play it on YouTube now, Rand. Why'd you say that? But he's right. And this is part of the problem. It illustrates the point, right? There is a sort of a current private disinformation governance czar. They tell you what you can talk about and what you can't talk about. All these official rules, all these people who know better than the rest of us. Rand Paul, tired of it. I'm sure you are, and I am as well. But here he says, today I question Mayorkas. We work our issues out by debating them, not by making the government the arbiter of truth, which has really been, I think, the most reasonable position ever. Government, well, he's going to make the point better than I can. Says, let's just listen to it. So here he is. Oh, dang it. I forget to keep switching this. I'm all out of it. Can you believe this? I'm rusty as can be. I keep forgetting to switch the slides, and I can't even talk. All right, this is Mayorkas out there. And he's now going to get into it with Rand Paul, and he is actually quite agitated. I mean, if you take a look at his face and you take a look at his fist expressions, I mean, he's actually like almost giving it to Rand. It's kind of aggressive. Here he is. Let's listen.
Do you think the Steele dossier included Russian disinformation?
Senator, that's not a question that I'm equipped to answer.
All right, so he was asking about the Steele dossier. Do you think the Steele dossier was Russian disinformation? The answer was, it absolutely was. And the Democrats took it and they ran with it. And he's not going to answer that. This is like the 5th time he's been asked this by somebody in Congress, and he refuses to answer it. It's clear disinformation. It is in the mind map that we literally just talked about. Steele was proffering all of this over to Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS gave it to Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie gave it to Michael Sussman. Sussman took it to the FBI. And that was all erroneous. The media ran with it. Everybody ran with it. And he refuses to answer whether or not that was actual disinformation. Here he is.
It was in the public news. It was you may have heard of it, the Mueller investigation. It was a $32 million investigation that went over a couple of years.
Yeah, nothing.
Horowitz was an investigator general, and he looked at the FBI's activity in the beginning of this. And what the FBI concluded was that there were FBI agents throughout this period of time who concluded that, yes, the dossier was full of Russian disinformation.
Yeah, there you go.
So let's say it is Russian disinformation. You say your new disinformation governance board is going to help the public with disinformation. You claim it's not going to be about domestic. It's going to be about foreigners and those evil Russians.
Yeah.
So here's my question. The FBI concludes that the Steele dossier was full of Russian disinformation. CNN propagated this disinformation gladly for years and years. The difference, I guess, between your opinion and our opinion is that, as despicable as it is that CNN propagated this disinformation, I wouldn't shut them down. I wouldn't lecture them. I wouldn't put it on a government website that CNN's wrong for propagating disinformation.
Yeah, you just refute it. And that's been actually going on a lot recently on Twitter. Elon was out. He's actually been out several times today rebutting fake news. There was a story that he asked somebody out when he was at the Met Gala or whatever that stupid thing was. And that's not true. He said, that's not true. There was another story out that Donald Trump had reached out to Elon Musk on Twitter and had said something about where he was going to go or whatever. And Elon got on Twitter and said, that's also not true. Nobody's ever contacted us. We've never had any conversations about any of this. And people are saying, well, yeah, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, you just get out there and you just rebut the stories that are not true. You provide evidence, counterfactuals, you debate the idea, and you deal with it. Not like what Twitter used to do, which was just eliminate entire newspapers from the platform, talking about the New York Post when the Hunter Biden story came out, and they didn't want that to catch wind, and then go viral and wreck the election for Joe Biden. And they did a nice job censoring it. And now we're here back again. Rand Paul's asking specifically, you want to help with this? Define this for us. How are you going to solve this disinformation problem?
The problem you have is you're not even willing to admit, I mean, we can't even have an agreement on what the FBI said was disinformation. How do you propose that you're going to have an office of disinformation governance if you see the problem in even determining what is disinformation?
Can't define it.
Because our work is not focused on disinformation writ large.
What is
Where
it?
we, the Department of Homeland Security, become involved is when there's a connectivity between disinformation and threats to the security of the homeland.
All right. So do you see what he just said there? Now he's being very clever here. He's saying, look, we're the Department of Homeland Security. We're creating this government disinformation board, but we're only going to be focused on disinformation that's connected with threats to Homeland Security. He's, oh, well, that makes sense. You are the Department of Homeland Security. So that sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? Problem is, how do you define what a threat is? How do you define what disinformation is? You've got these very amorphous terms that nobody knows what they mean, apparently, except from Singing Jankowicz there. And it's very difficult to impose rules where you don't know what the standards are. You don't know how to interpret them. And nobody trusts this government to do anything that is in line with the Constitution, at least on sort of people on my side of the perspective. But here is now how he continues on with this narrative. And remember what he's trying to do. It's only threats to the homeland. How do we define those, though? We'll see how he says.
Well, the Russians might be considered that. You mentioned the Russians the other day when you tried to pivot away from this being about censorship. But let's say it is the Russians. I know you're not going to ever agree that the Steele dossier, which y'all spent so much money on, was disinformation. But it was, and the FBI concluded. But let's just say there's an imaginary disinformation. You've discovered tomorrow Russian disinformation that's going to hurt our national security, and CNN's broadcasting it. What are you going to do?
Senator,
you're going to tell Putin you shouldn't do this. What are you going to do?
Senator, let me explain what we do in the Department of Homeland Security with respect to disinformation.
I don't know if he's intending to be condescending, but I think maybe a little bit.
And frankly, what we've been doing for nearly 10 years across different administrations. The cartels propagate disinformation that Title 42 does not apply to a particular community of migrants.
Okay, so he's identifying a very key specific category of disinformation. Now, we've been alive here and doing this show for quite some time on this channel talking about these issues, and I don't recall hearing warnings or seeing the little stupid exclamation points all over every social media post, every single YouTube video. I don't remember being thrown off Discord or any of these other garbage platforms for proffering forward, suspended here on YouTube for 7 days for any sort of disinformation involving Title 42 and migrants making their way into the United States. He's saying that the drug cartels are telling the migrants wrong things about moving into America, saying that Title 42 has been rescinded, but it really hasn't. It's very confusing for them. And so the Department of Homeland Security now needs to create an entire new board for this. Is that really what we think that he's actually focused on? No, we all know that the disinformation arguments have been all about the pandemic and all about the election and all about certain candidates and all about everything else that is counter to their narrative. But he's going to say, no, this board is only for the migrants so that they get the real information, not the disinfo. All right, let's go back to Mayorkas.
Migrants from a particular country.
How are they propagating this?
If I may, through social media. And what we do through U.S. Customs and Border Protection is actually communicate via social media and other channels that is false, that we do apply Title 42.
So let's say there's Russian disinformation as well. Are you going to take to social media and broadcast that people are broadcasting something incorrect about what do you think is?
So I think his argument is that he just gets on Twitter and he says, if the drug cartels say you're allowed to come into the United States because Title 42 status, whatever, they just get on social media and they just say, excuse me, migrants, don't listen to the drug cartels. They don't know, they're spreading disinformation. Or maybe what they can do is put a stupid little exclamation point with a reminder that says, please check with the CDC about migrant information before you cross the border illegally. Idiots. All right, here, let's listen in before we wrap this up, because it gets real good. Rand Paul is about to let him have it.
Senator, let me emphasize.
Well, you said the other day Russians, and now you're saying not so much the Russians, you're saying the cartels.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not, Senator. You're mischaracterizing my statement.
Then what are you going to do if there's Russian disinformation? You're going to broadcast something on social media?
Allow me to share.
Post it on Facebook.
When we become involved in the Department of Homeland Security.
Tell us.
We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country.
Okay, so do you see what he just said there? Pose a threat to the security of our country. The drug cartels providing disinformation to migrants so that they may be incentivized to cross the border apparently is a threat to the sanctity of this country, but they're not going to do anything about it. Let's go back.
It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, connectivity to violence. And what this working group does.
Working group now.
They
changed the name. It's a working group. It's not a disinformation board, which is a little bit better, still terrible.
Group does is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish.
All right, and I think I have both. Yeah.
Number one, that what this working group does, because it's not an office.
Here it is, yeah.
What this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that
He said definitions and standards, but he has still not defined and can't define for us whether or not any of the Steele dossier was disinformation or not. So I guess that would be a question for his board.
Free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two is that your proposition
Rand Paul is going to just lay
that when
him
the
out in a minute.
cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border.
Do you see the problem he's identifying? This is a threat to American security. If you live in a border state, if you've been watching what's going on at the border in any recent months, we have record number of encounters at the border month after month after month, and it's just going to get worse. So here he's making the argument out of both sides of his mouth. Mayorkas and the Democrats for a long time now, Republicans too, nobody wants to solve this border problem at all, but they have been telling us that I guess it really doesn't require a wall. It doesn't require billions of dollars to go solve this problem. All that money is good for Ukraine. We can spend $30 billion or whatever. It's going to be $100 billion soon, I'm sure. A lot of money over there for that war, but this is not a problem in the United States. But it is a problem, according to Mayorkas, when they are provided with bad information. Then it becomes a threat because now we have this nexus. We have the connection between the disinfo and the harm to the United States, the threat. But it's only about the disinformation. Apparently, it's not about the people coming across the border. Otherwise, they would have done something. The disinformation is what makes it problematic and a threat to America. It's not the fact that people are coming across the border. Here he is.
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government.
That's right.
Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country.
Yeah.
We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is?
Get 'em, Rand.
You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
Look at his face.
So I do have a
Look
question,
at his face.
and here's the question. So the Russians, maybe the Russians.
Oh, he gets so mad. Now, so then Rand goes into a little bit of a COVID rant on that, and so we got to skip over that. But, oh man, Mayorkas very unhappy about this. And look, I think this is a bipartisan point that Rand Paul makes. Pick a side. Look, it doesn't matter what type of citizen you are. You're Democrat, Republican, whether you love Trump, hate Trump, love Biden, hate Biden, love Obama, hate Obama. It doesn't matter. Can we all acknowledge that every one of those administrations has not been entirely truthful with us about most things? It's pretty obvious, right? They're always telling us this is the truth. This is the reality. This is what you need to do. And then a couple weeks later, we lived this for the last 2 years. It's constantly changing. Do this and this works and this doesn't work. And then step this and put this on and don't put it on. It's never been consistent because we have a bunch of morons in charge, and they're going to tell us now what is true. But what's so powerful about this is they get to set the terms. They get to set the standards. And if you don't comply, they throw you out of there. So that's Rand Paul and Mayorkas. Let's see if we have any comments on this one. We've got Bernard Sweeney's here, says, I always feel like I owe you money every time I listen to your channel. No one breaks down a subject in more detail. Well, thank you for that, Bernard Sweeney. You don't no obligations on that. I really do appreciate it. And it's very useful in sort of leveling things up over here. I'm going to get some new gear here shortly. And I want to try to set up a little bit of a multi-camera thing. I've got an interview that I'm trying to line up with somebody super cool from Tucson. He's going to talk about some really cool stuff. And so I'm really excited about what's to come. And I appreciate the support because it does go a long way. Over on YouTube, a couple shout outs. Ronald Slipples here. Mauricio M is in the house. Playing hooky number one's here. Jay Heath is in the house. We've got Glenn Manas. Let's see what's going on over on locals. Former LEO's in the house. We've got Farmer's Daughters here. Oh my goodness. It's like a reunion. I'm so happy to see everybody. We've got JC the Music Man and everybody's piling in. It's good to see everybody. All right. And we've got one more segment on the day before we wrap it up. And let's see what is next. Oh yeah. Are my slides out of order here? Hang on one second. No, I think we can cover it this way. Well, the news on this Friday, and if you are a YouTube member or a supporter, we have a special GIF in our comment section available for this. Jen Psaki's leaving the White House. Oh no. And we have a moment where she's handing over the podium and the torch to the new press secretary. And there's a special moment that happens here. Let's listen in.
I just want to take the opportunity to celebrate and congratulate my friend, my colleague, my partner in truth, Karine Jean-Pierre, the next White House press secretary.
Partner in truth.
Now, many people in this room have known her for some time. But for anyone who does not know her, I want to provide a little bit of a primer for you, so settle in.
All right, so we're going to deal with that. We're not going to listen to the whole narrative there. But they had a moment. It was very beautiful. They came out with a press release. Of course, they are press people, so they put out a press release. We have President Biden on May 5th announcing Karine Jean-Pierre, new White House press secretary. And this is a very historic and very monumental transition. And we've poked a lot of fun here at Jen Psaki, and so we got to pay our proper respects. But she's on her way out. Today, Biden and Karine, I think that's how you say her name. It's got to be Karine, right? Has been promoted to assistant to the president and White House press secretary. She's jumping in on May 13th. Statement from the president says, I'm proud to announce that she's going to be the White House press secretary, talent, and so on. Jill and I have known her for a long time. Jen has set the standard for returning decency, respect, and decorum to the White House. I want to say thank you for raising the bar. Nice sense of humor. Wish her the very best as she moves on. Other people are joining in as well. So that is from the White House. We saw that exchange. Jen Psaki on Twitter came out, posted this and says, lots to say about how grateful I am. She's a remarkable woman who will soon be behind the podium every day. Now, if you've been following the story, you know that a lot of the conversation has been about how historic this is. Everything this administration does is historic and unprecedented and never before seen and amazing, 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 amazing. Well, Jen Psaki gives us some more details. This is what she says. The very second tweet out of her. So first tweet is this one. Second tweet comes out, says she will be the first Black woman and the first openly LGBTQ plus person to serve as the White House press secretary. Which is just, they just love the labels. Anytime they can slap one on a forehead, they'll do it. Representation matters, and she will give a voice to many, but also make a dream big about what is truly possible. And then we get to some of her backgrounds and her experience, which is what I think, most people care about. Decades of experience, early years working in the government and politics. She was an outspoken advocate. She's passionate, smart, moral core, mom, and amazing human, and has a great sense of humor. So those are qualities that, most people will talk about. She's got a dog or what is this? I don't know what else she had, but you get the picture of it, right? So it's very historic because of this. And it's going to be very difficult to, of course, offer any criticisms lest you be all sorts of xenophobic labels yourself. But Jen is on her way out. And so she had a couple moments there with some other reporters in the press briefing room. We have a one here from Peter Doocy from Fox News. He's saying, Jen, I know you hate my guts, but it was kind of nice working with you. Let's listen to this.
Thank you, Jen. Sorry to see you go.
Are you?
Yes, and you've always been a good sport.
Thank you.
So
As
on
have you.
behalf of everybody, thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything.
Thank you,
And
Peter.
can't wait to see you up there, Kareem.
So that's a little fun, right? And they do poke fun at each other. And Saki, kind of gets a little flustered at the ears kind of coming out there. And Doocy is just sitting there with this little stinking Rolodex of, just gotcha questions that are just the worst. I mean, he has one of the best jobs ever, is to just sit all night. I mean, I'd love that job, really, now that I think about it, to just sit there and come up with gotcha questions and just mix and mash all sorts of, you can string together Hunter Biden, James Biden, Joe Biden, throw Jill Biden in there and then tie it all in with a Kamala on top. And you just layer those questions one after another. It's beautiful. And so poor Doocy's going to be, missing his little other half for a while, but they have a nice exit, and that's, of course, fun. Let's see what else. We have another clip now. So that was a nice moment. Jen Psaki, though, she was trying something on the way out. Here is how she exits her tenure.
As you know, the president has made clear we will go after Russian oligarchs and their ill-gotten gains, using every authority we have to hold them accountable. Oh, and here is the yacht. Look at that.
That they stole.
I went to really go out with the bank, so we got a yacht.
We got a yacht.
To make the point about oligarchs.
All right, so kind of a swing and a miss there from Jen. I mean, look, I've always appreciated Jen. She's fun. And we have a lot of fun, giving her the old needle from time to time here on the channel. But she left on a very symbolic note, seizing other people's private property, which is very indicative of this administration. We meet the new gal who's coming in, which I think is offensive. So I'm probably illegal for calling her that inappropriate. What is it? Pronoun attribution. But we learn more about her. Here's what it says. Karine Jean-Pierce. She's the principal deputy currently. She's been all over the place. And look where she comes from. So, oh boy, is this going to be juicy. She's here from the MoveOn.org. She was chief public affairs officer, and she was from NBC, and also an MSNBC political analyst. Great. So Jean Pierre is coming over from NBC. Meanwhile, we have Saki, who's probably going over to NBC. She was the regional political director for Obama Biden, Southeast regional director for somebody in 2008, Obama in 2008. ACLU Reproductive Freedom Initiative. She worked at the Center for the Community and all those other things. And she went to Columbia. Wow. All right. So that, of course, is our new press secretary. And I'm sure she's going to be just as fun. Probably not, actually. We've had a couple conversations with her, and it's going to take her a little time to find her footing there in the front stage podium position. But we're going to continue to cover that and follow her. And so we'll have some fun there. That's all the stories we've got, but let's take a look at some of these super chats that came in. We'll spend some time saying our hellos and goodbyes and reconnecting, because it's like a reunion, and it's been a lot of fun. It's good to see everybody again. We have a couple that came in, super chats. That was from Ronnie Cole earlier on the day. Angie Jack is here with a big, nice, generous super chat talking about for the trial transcript. We appreciate you. Well, thank you, Angie. Yeah, and it's going to be fun. I don't know what that total is going to be, but it's going to be worth it. I think this trial is a very important trial, and it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. So I appreciate that. And, the other person who is covering this a lot is Technofog. And I would really encourage you. He's been getting the transcripts sort of, I think, next day, and very appreciative to him for that. So if you want to support his work, I'd appreciate that as well. Zulu is here. Zulu Zeit is in the house, says, it's good to see you in your natural state again. Saki will be missed. It's good to see you, Zulu. I missed you too, my friend. And Saki will be missed. We're going to keep the Saki GIF down there in the chat. And, maybe we'll have to have a moment of silence or something on May 13th. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But rest assured, we'll see more of Jen. She's just going to go right over and probably pick up for Rachel Maddow at MSNBC. It's going to be perfect. It's good to see you, Zulu. Thanks for being here, my friend. And I'm glad that this is all working. I mean, I can see everything. It's kind of a miracle. This is amazing. It's good to see you. We've got Three Girlies is here. No, we got Kareem first. Kareem says, glad to see you live again, Rob. Could you please tell us if you posted that video you did with Coach Troy Henson? I did. Yeah. So that's over for members on YouTube. That's available there. I did an interview with my business coach. We talked a lot about sort of how we work together. That is available for members. And I think Kareem, that's also available over on Locals if you're a member over there, which I believe you are. So I can repost that again or repost the link over to that. But that was a good conversation. A little bit different of content. But Coach Troy's a real cool guy, and I liked talking to him. Three Girlies is in the house, says, little girly says hi and misses you being live. Well, I miss you too. I was going to finish that sentence. I'll just say I missed being live as well. And it is really good to be here. And, it's one of those things that it just took me a little while to settle in. I thought I'd be able to sort of move and get a lot of stuff settled in a little bit more quickly. But we're really doing some cool stuff at the law firm. I'm going to share a little bit more of that here as we do more lives, and I'm sort of integrating my two worlds together a little bit. I've got a whole law firm that I'm super proud about and that we've been building like crazy. We've got all these new processes and systems and workflows and everything that is really now coming close to being, mostly finished, minimal viable products on a lot of these things, which are really cool. And I'll be sharing more about that. But the reason I'm telling you all that is because I miss the lives. I miss doing these. I have a lot of fun. I actually learn a lot. I mean, when I would do the lives previously, one of the things that I would always say was valuable is the conversation. It's the feedback. It's the live real-time sort of interaction that is really, I think, valuable to developing the conversation. And so I've always wanted to bring them back. Now's the right time to do it. So shout out to Three Girlies and all of the girlies out there who are back on the stream. It's good to be here. It's really good to be here. So we have Reference also saying, always love your fair and well-informed commentary. Thank you for that, Reference. And I think that was it for the super chats. Let's take a look at what else is coming in over on the chat. We got Just Cause is in the house. Good to see you, Just. Couple wrenches. Zulu's back in there holding the fort down. I appreciate that. Also, some shout outs to Vientikis. I haven't seen Vientikis here, but I posted this super last minute. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to record anything or if this would be a pre-record, headline show, or if we could just do this live. So we have Farmer's Daughters over on Locals. We have Three Girlies over there. JC, the Music Man. Vientikis has been doing a great job posting over there. Mr. MBP's in the house. Joey Bandolero as well. And that, my friends, is about it for us on the day. And is Vientikis in the chat? I haven't seen him over there. But shout out to V. Shout out to everybody who I missed off the top of my head. But we'll start doing a lot more of these. I'm sort of now settled in. I'm creating some space. A lot of these can now be, sort of Friday nights, Saturday nights, since I have a place to record back where I live now. Breck Nichols says, too old to be optimistic, but could this be the best Christmas ever? Durham, Hunter's laptop, 2,000 mules, midterms, January 6th. And I was thinking about that. I actually wrote some of this down, and I keep some notes on, one of these apps that we all keep notes in. And here's what I wrote. Major wins. Yeah, so I wrote a few of these, but Washington Post and New York Times confirmed the Hunter Biden laptop story. So that stinks totally. Those are major, organizational newspapers of the left, and they got to confirm this thing. We know it was true. New York Post confirmed it a long time ago. Anyways, you get the point. Elon buys Twitter. Another major W for the sort of non-Democrats. Sussman's going to trial, got indicted. Another win. Trump grand jury, no charges. SCOTUS overturning Roe versus Wade, win. Mask mandates, unconstitutional. The list goes on and on and on. And, it's just not going to be, I think, anything that turns around in time for the election. We know that the Democrats are very, very, I think, interested in seizing this moment, seizing the ability to jump onto Roe versus Wade and sort of make that their cause until the election comes. But I'm not sure it's going to be useful or effective. I was listening to another person that I like to listen to. What's his name? He's part of the All In podcast, great podcast. And he was out on, I think, CNBC today, talking about, the stock market going into the toilet this entire week, talking about the inflation numbers, talking about the total income to housing costs, and all of the different numbers and metrics are showing that the United States may be in for, a difficult financial road ahead. And if that's the case, I don't think abortion, I don't think any other social issue is enough to overcome the momentum of a draining economy. And it's really unfortunate. That's one of the things that I definitely don't like to see is Americans hurting at the expense of a political party. I never like to sort of champion for the downfall of the American economy or the collapsing of the American dollar or hurt pain that's going to be something that transcends to American families. That's the worst. But at the same time, it's a little bit instructive. We get to say, hey, this is a consequence of these horrific policies. And there have been people screaming about this from the rooftops, talking about all the money being printed, talking about all of the levers of power that the government was gobbling up over these past 2 years, screaming on YouTube that this was all going to come down. Like the fun has to end at some part. The ride's got to come to an end. And, here we are. And there's going to be consequences for it. And I think it's going to be a really rude awakening for a lot of people. And it's a sad state of affairs because I don't think it had to happen this way, but here we are. These are our useless, ineffective leaders who are not leading at all. We had a couple super chats come in. Beth Coddington is in the house, says, no, Robert, you can't go. It's great to see you live again. It's great to see you, Beth. I missed you. I really did. I missed everybody here. It's been a lot of fun to have this live stream with you again. We'll do more of them. Might be back tomorrow, maybe Sunday. My very trusted Marvin is out. So shout out to Marvin. Marvin helps me do some editing on the videos, and he's out celebrating this weekend with his father. They're going on a sort of a celebratory thing. And so he's not going to be around this weekend to help with any editing. And he's amazing. And so shout out to Marvin. Shout out to Marvin's father. Happy birthday, Marvin's dad. And which means we have more opportunities to do some lives. And we'll get into a better cadence with these things because they are a lot of fun. Like I said, I learn a lot. I really enjoy our time together. And we'll be back to do it again. But that, my friends, is it for us for the day. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. We'll have some more stuff coming out tomorrow, certainly soon enough. Have a tremendous rest of your evening, rest of your Friday night. Have a great weekend ahead. Try to unplug from politics unless you're watching videos on this channel. But, it's good to recharge the batteries because we've got a lot more to get to. Sussman is coming in hot. We're going to be covering that a lot. I'm going to try to bifurcate some of that. I know a lot of people aren't entirely interested in that, but it's going to be a very, very important trial. And I think that it's going to be well worth our investment because it's got it all, baby. It's got criminal law. It's got political law. It's got the entire Democratic Party all careening into one. And we're going to cover it hard. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you join us. But that, my friends, is it for us for the night. Have a tremendous rest of your evening. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Really great to be live again with you. We'll do it again very soon. Have a tremendous evening, and I'll see you.